Welcome arters, artists, and art appreciators to this week's video. I'm Regina, or Arter of Lore, and I do all sorts of art. And this week I'm doing a relatively simple Blender sculpt of a Pride-themed Animal Crossing character since it's Pride Month and I like Animal Crossing. In this video I'll go through the stages of creating this Animal Crossing character and doing a simple animation with like an armature at the end. This isn't per se a step-by-step tutorial since I'm still learning how to use Blender, but you'll see my process, and I'll link below tutorials that I found the most useful when learning. I wanted to do something for Pride Month, ideally something pretty big, but I ended up just incorporating this idea that I've been planning to do for a while, making an Animal Crossing character on my pig crew, which I'll discuss a little bit later for the design elements. I already have a rainbow doll on my channel, my draft girl doll that I made not very long ago, so this isn't really that much different from what I normally do. I like rainbows a lot, and I also like Pride Month, you know, not just because it's rainbows, but for a lot of different reasons. And I also like representing Pride Month through my art, even just in little ways. I'm not really like, an artist who does a lot of, you know, long-form comics about my own experiences at this point. But I like drawing cutesy characters, and I like when those cutesy characters are queer, like my little Calico Critters that I drew last year. Because Calico Critters are a brand that has a lot of family groups with like a boy and a girl, like a male and a female, mom and dad, and then they have their like little babies. And so last year I did a little gay couple of the Calico Critters, and I love when people make their Calico Critters you know, very obviously not straight, I guess. I think that's very fun. You know, you can use dolls to represent all sorts of things, and it's great when people have like more inclusive ones, especially since, you know, the brand is pretty heteronormative, which is funny because like the Calico Critters themselves just look like little animals, so it's not like they're very clearly gendered, but they have clothing that makes it clear that they're supposed to be gendered. Similarly, Animal Crossing has not really clear genders in terms of how the characters look, but if you know anything about Animal Crossing, you'll know that there are, I think, 8 different personalities, but 4 of them are only for the girl characters, and then 4 of the other ones are for the male characters, or like the boy and the girl animals. And it doesn't really make a difference in terms of what the characters are like, but it is also something where, like, there's a grumpy character has to be technically the male characters. So I don't know why there can't be grumpy girl characters in Animal Crossing. I think they should, you know, maybe expand that in the future. In the original games, the grumpy characters had a pretty intense personality, but it is also different in the newer games, so the personalities don't necessarily matter as much. And the only time you really notice the difference, I think, in the male and female characters is with the kangaroos. But, you know, if they were more inclusive of genders and things like that, that'd be great. But this character's just kind of loosely Pride-themed to celebrate, and I'll show you a little bit how I incorporated that later. In the future, I'd like to make my own Pride event sort of unique character design, like a unique version of the Santa reindeer, but for Pride Month. But I'd want to practice making like a few other models first before I try to design something that's like more complicated or that's like completely unique. Like I'd like to try emulating the style a few times before then. So that might be a project for the future. I started playing Animal Crossing when I was pretty young. I think when I was like 6 or 7. My dad had gotten a GameCube and we played together. In the original Animal Crossing game on GameCube, there was a default of 4 houses in the town square, so you would have like 4 little human characters in your town that you could play. And, you know, like my dad had one, and then I had one, and then we had our little like villagers in the town. I remember he would help me like catch fish, and I would just like run around and catch bugs. At the beginning of 2020, New Horizons came out, which is the game that's on Switch, and that's, I think, when Animal Crossing started getting talked about a lot more. Obviously, they've had games in between and before that, but I remember, it really popped off in the 2020, but I did not have a Nintendo Switch because they were sold out everywhere and impossible to get my hands on. So my mom actually gave me a GameCube that my siblings had had for a while because the GameCube that I had when I was younger was long gone. And my partner's parents sent us all their games from childhood and like all the games that they and their brother shared from when they were kids. They sent, their parents sent us to those at the beginning of the pandemic, and so we spent a lot of time playing like, well, Animal Crossing, of course, also like old games like Mario Kart and Super Monkey Ball and things like that. The Finding Nemo game, which is not good. Mario Party, a very old Mario Party. Luigi's Mansion, just a whole bunch of games. And they even sent us the save files, so we played like a 15-year-old Animal Crossing game from when my partner was younger. And like the characters in the game are like my partner and their brother. So it's just very, that was very fun. And so we got into Animal Crossing before we had the Switch, and then we finally got a Switch so that we could play the modern version, of course, and like, play with friends, get all of this, new additions and the better aesthetics and the more decoration. I really love the decorating portion of the game, that they've added a lot of that. My favorite character is actually, I think I really like Gaston the rabbit. He's like the rabbit with the big mustache. I'm also a big fan of Coco. Everyone loves, I think the octopus's name is Marina. I have Raymond on my island, which like that was a whole thing. Raymond the cat was really popular at the beginning, and he randomly moved into my island, and I was really annoyed because people were always talking about Raymond, and I was like, I don't care about this cat. But then I got stung by a wasp, and he did give me medicine, because that's what the animals, the villagers will do. They'll give you medicine if you get sick. And I was like, I don't mind him anymore. He's actually my best friend. Drawn a few Animal Crossing original characters in the past, mostly just like little designs that I come up with. Obviously always in 2D since I'm only learning 3D modeling now. I like made my cat in Animal Crossing and my stuffed animal from when I was a kid, my other original characters, and some like various fan art. I really like seeing unique animals, like people imagining animals that aren't in Animal Crossing as Animal Crossing characters. And I did a couple of my own, including trying to 3D sculpt one of those, but I never completed it because I just like wasn't doing 3D sculpting was like a lot harder at that point for me. But like I tried to make snake villagers and spider villagers in Animal Crossing because I just thought that those are like fun animals to incorporate into it. And I've seen people do like things like that with, I think, bats. A lot of people talk about like if there were bats in Animal Crossing, and make sort of models of those. And I'd like to do something like that in the future. Like I said, make like a unique character species would be fun. So let me know if you, or I guess, are interested in seeing that. As for the design of this character, I made a Picaro a while back. So if you didn't know what Picaro is, it's a website that basically allows you to make like paper dolls for like dressing up. I mean, not like literally paper, like digital equivalents of paper dolls where you like dress up a little character. And artists can upload like little pieces, like different pieces of clothes, like a shirt and a little hat and something, and you can dress up a character and, you know, change the character's eye color or whatever. And a while back I made a pickaroo to make Animal Crossing villagers, so it has like different animals in it. And that was kind of the idea of this video before I decided to make it Pride themed. But like also there's a lot of Pride elements that I added to my Animal Crossing pickaroo because I wanted people to be able to like, you know, express themselves through it. So I added a lot of the flags, a lot of like Pride flagged themed clothing and a lot of rainbow clothing. Although I mostly focused on making like unique animals, I guess. I could have tried to go ahead and make this character all rainbows, but I already have a rainbow draft character that's like yellow with rainbow spots. So I just decided to focus on making it like bright and cheerful colors, and I gave her a little flag. And so it's more like a character who's celebrating Pride than like literally a rainbow. So I hope people don't mind that. I guess if there was like a Pride event in Animal Crossing, she'd be like visiting the town square and celebrating. And I like added hearts into her design because I wanted her to be more like, I guess like love themed. And after I designed her in the character creator and my pickaroo, I did some additional drawing so I could change the colors and make them more unique. Made all her spots hearts, gave her a rainbow, you know, everything like that. I was thinking maybe she has like a twin character that's pink and red and it could be like the Valentine's Day character. Or maybe she just turns pink and red around Valentine's Day, who knows? Regarding the model herself, I did make some mistakes, maybe not the best choices with this character. I didn't do the, what's it called? The UV mesh, which is like kind of how you draw. You'll see when I do my coloring in of her body, the mesh isn't very organized, if that makes sense. Like the way that you should use UV meshes is essentially, if you think of a cube and you flatten out all 6 sides of the cube, then you just have like 6 squares next to one another. And a UV mesh is basically like that. You're taking all the squares in her body and flattening them out. And the program can do it like semi-automatically, but you have to tell it what parts you want to pull the figure apart like at like the seams. And I just didn't do that part very well, so if I ever do another character like this, I have to really think harder about where I put the seams. But I was kind of rushing, or I like wanted to get to the part where I got to color this character, so I didn't do that all that well, to be honest. Her head shape was also pretty hard to figure out. There's a lot of like subtle differences between the character that I kind of created and I think the actual models in the game that you don't really think about until you like start coloring on them a lot of the time. Like I just realized how hard it is to make a 3D model that's, you know, perfectly emulating something else, especially when it's just these simple shapes. It's like almost harder because if one vertex is like a little bit off, like that can probably throw a lot of things off that you don't even realize. So it's just a lot to think about. I think it's a good learning experience to create a character based off like such a, you know, iconic and long-lived franchise. like, Animal Crossing has always been relatively simple in terms of the character sculpts themselves. New Horizons really got more complex with the clothing options. Like, the clothings are a lot more detailed. But when it comes to the character's sort of shape, it's pretty simple still. And I think it makes it a good subject to practice with, is this kind of character. You'll find all sorts of tutorials online about how to make an Animal Crossing sculpt. I didn't follow any tutorials specifically about Animal Crossing for this, by the way. I just used the knowledge I had from previous tutorials that I had followed. But there are tutorials specifically about making Animal Crossing characters, I think, on YouTube. One other thing about the meshes is that if you organize them more neatly, it's a lot easier to color things in, like coloring in the jacket and everything. You can do that on the flat UV mesh itself, if you kind of organize everything super neatly. You can even put it in like a different art program. And I didn't do that. I just didn't really feel like it. I just kind of ended up freehanding all the rainbows and everything because I just wanted to get them done and I don't want to think about organizing them. But I think in the end it'll turn out alright if you have like a pretty steady hand at doing stuff like this. And of course, you're zooming in and putting all these details in while you're pretty zoomed in. And once you zoom out, you won't notice any of the small imperfections, like if you're looking up close at things. So as we're nearing the end of the video and I'm doing like finishing up all the details and stuff on screen, I did want to add a couple of things that I did off screen, kind of explain my logic for what I included in this video. I tried to include all the sculpting and all of the coloring in and some of the in-between processes like the retopology and the UV mesh, but I didn't include kind of the armature, which was made using an add-on called Rigify. Rigify makes it a lot easier to make rigs in Blender, but you also have to like do a little bit of adjusting to the rig, and I had to do a few different tries in order to get it right. And I also skipped over at the very end of the video me like making the animation frames for the little animations that I do. I just wanted to mention that because sometimes, you know, videos don't end up being like everything that you do. You know, you do other things, you skip over those parts of the process, but those did take a while. They just weren't interesting to watch, I guess. And I don't know whether or not everything I included in this video was really interesting for people to watch, so like let me know what your favorite parts are or what you'd like to see, I guess, in future Blender videos. I think from what I've seen, people sometimes don't include the retopology portion, for example. I included making the UV mesh because, I mean, I didn't do it very well and I messed it up and you could see it on screen. But, you know, I might not include that portion in future videos and just include more of the sculpting and the coloring parts. So yeah, let me know if you want to see, like, more of the whole process or less of the whole process. There's just a lot of, like, fiddling around, hitting undo, and then redoing things that goes on sort of behind the scenes. So, you know, I thought I should mention that at the end of the video, because sometimes it feels weird when you're watching a video and you realize that someone's, like, skipped ahead through a few steps and it's, like, stuff that happened off screen, but maybe it wasn't that interesting or something like that. So, yeah, just let me know what you think if you got to this part of the video, feel free to give me some feedback on what was included and like what you'd like to see in the future. I'm still starting out in my sort of YouTube journey and things like that, and figuring out what to post for each individual video. I'm trying to keep them usually around like 20 minutes long, but maybe in the future Blender videos will be a little bit shorter. I know that videos where I do some like sculpting with clay and things like that are going to end up on the longer side. There's just a lot more footage to go through and a lot more detail in that process. Just consider letting me know what you'd like to see, because that'd be great for like future videos and things like that. Here's the final render of this character. Happy Pride Month! I hope that you have had a good Pride Month. I hope you feel, I guess, supported by this little Animal Crossing dog. Just so you know, she's in your corner. No matter, I guess, who you are in the Pride community, LGBT community, everything like that. And yeah, just have a good June. And I'll see you next time for another art video. Goodbye.